Catch me wholesaling Grace on Fremont and 6, in the city of sin where kids get trafficked. And men pay big money to feed perversions. Got a mission front lines trying to reverse sin.
Living in New York, I just felt like I needed to leave. I never really experienced anything other than New York. And I asked my father, where I should go, and he suggested Vegas, that there was a lot of money there. And so I came to Vegas not knowing anybody. I moved out here by myself first, and then my wife and my son came out about 6 months after. I had a nightlife company, making lots of money, started getting involved with strip clubs, promoting that kind of stuff, dating different strippers and even talking girls into stripping. And people, they come here to Vegas for a week to live a crazy life and go home. And it was like, that's what I lived every day, It got so bad, me and my wife got separated. She went back to New York, and that was really the darkest time of my life here in Las Vegas.
I am probably the last person you'd expect to be a pastor, but I didn't fit into any church I could find, so we started one. A church for the rest of us, right in the heart of Sin City.
My mother is Jewish. My father, a professional poker player. And so growing up, they didn't take me to church much. Okay, never. And not only that, I never had a single person mention God to me or tell me about Jesus or invite me to church. When I was 20 years old, I turned on the TV in my college dorm room, and I saw this old guy sitting kind of slumped down in this big red leather overstuffed chair. And I kind of laughed, and then he said, "Now, most scholars believe that this event happened on the Tuesday of Jesus last week. But today, I will prove to you through the evidence that it actually occurred on the Wednesday of Jesus last week." Heard that. First thing I ever heard about Jesus in my life. And I thought, yes, that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. I mean, I admit, I don't know anything about Jesus, but if he lived at all, it was like 2,000 years ago, and you're talking about Tuesday or Wednesday. Seriously, turned off the TV in disgust. But for some reason, I couldn't explain. The rest of the day, I kept thinking about that guy. Like all these questions in my head, like why do you use the word evidence? I was a pre-law major. I ended up going to law school. I was into evidence. I was thinking, like, what kind of evidence would there be for something that, if it happened at all, was 2,000 years ago? And questions like, why did he care if it was Tuesday or Wednesday? And did anyone ever get him out of that chair? So that night, I borrowed a Bible from someone. I had never touched a Bible in my life, and I opened it not knowing how it would be set up, but I assumed it would be like the TV guide by day and time because of the whole Tuesday, Wednesday debate that was apparently tearing up Christianity. So I start reading. Again, never read a Bible, but I'm thinking it would read like a tall tale or a myth, that it would say, once upon a time, there lived a man named Jesus who did nice things for people and did miracles and had a blue ox named Babe, and he could lasso a tornado. And I would read it, roll my eyes, toss the Bible. But I was stunned when repeatedly the Bible said, at this particular time, in this particular place, Jesus did this particular thing. And I realized that if you give a time and a place, there would be evidence. Not Tuesday, Wednesday, but you could go back and find out, did this really happen? And so now I'm intrigued, and I keep reading just to find out what the Bible said. And I learned for the first time that the Bible claimed that there was a God who loved me and who wanted to have a relationship with me, and who sent his son Jesus to live for me and die for me so that I could have that relationship with him, and so that someday I could go to be with him forever in heaven. I'd never heard anything like that. And so I decided if it was true, I would become a Christian. And if it wasn't, I would spend the rest of my life making fun of Christians for believing in something that I could prove was false. And I spent months studying the evidence, trying to disprove the Bible. But eventually, I was overwhelmed with all the evidence, and there's volumes of evidence that support the veracity of the Bible. And most of all, I was overwhelmed by Jesus. I realized that Jesus was the most amazing thing I had ever encountered, and the only life I wanted to live was one with him in it.
Hey, Vince.
Travis.
You got a minute?
Yeah, come on in.
Yeah?
How you doing?
Travis was actually the first person that we saw come to Christ and get baptized here at birth, and his wife was the second. She had left him, and they reunited, and we renewed their wedding vows, and yeah, Travis is the first person we saw his life just dramatically change here.
I've just been thinking a lot, like, about all the things that God has done in my life, and it's been just like an amazing journey.
It really has, yeah.
Everything that's happened to my family and what God has done. I mean, to think that he could love someone like me has really just changed my life. I remember waking up one morning and just not knowing who I was, just really feeling lost completely. At that time, my wife had come back from New York, and she invited me to go to this church. I mean, she really didn't want to talk to me. We had already really destroyed our relationship, and I followed her. It was really the only time that I could see my kids, and we could be civilized. I heard this guy, Vince, give this message about the prodigal son, and when I did, that day changed my life. I just feel like I'm being pushed to a whole downtown area with, the art district and
Like Fremont Street, Arts District.
yeah, like that whole just revitalization thing that's happening downtown.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing I would tell you is you got to do that. I mean, I believe when God puts that in your heart, I mean, that's God's heart. It's to let everyone know that he loves them, he's for everyone. And so when God puts that kind of thought, that kind of vision in your life, you got to go for it. I mean, we had started the church in Virginia Beach, thought we were going to be there forever, and God did the same thing. He just kind of put this weird thought in our head of like, what about Las Vegas? There are no churches on the Las Vegas Strip and around the Las Vegas Strip, and so we just felt pushed to do the same thing you're saying. And everybody said, man, if you want to start a church out in the suburbs, that might work, but if you start a church anywhere near the Strip where there's all the sin and sinners, you will fail. People told me it was like career suicide, but it was like, we got to do it, because people need God's love. And so I would tell you, you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah,
that's great.
But like for you guys, like you had experience planning a church, you had a team that went with you, all these things. And it's like, for me, like, it's just me. And I just have this dream of reaching downtown, but it seems like it's too big of a project,
And it may be, but when we realized that there aren't churches on the Las Vegas Strip or anywhere really near there, our vision got a lot bigger. What we want to do is not just start this church, but start churches, or at least help inspire people, equip people to start churches like on Bourbon Street, on the Sunset Strip, in the Red Light District in Amsterdam, which there's no church in those places either, and I have no idea how to do that, but I think it's something God's called us to do, and so I got to figure out how to do it.
I don't know how this is gonna happen. I just know it's something I have to do.
If Travis wants to go down and love people on Fremont Street, he's got a lot more going for him than he realizes.
Jesus told a story about a shepherd who has 100 sheep. Now, 100 is a lot of sheep, right? I was thinking about this. Is there anything I own 100 of? For those of us who are parents, and if you had 100 kids, do you think you'd ever notice if one just kind of wandered off? I don't think so, no, because you got 100 of them, right? My parents had 2 kids, me and my younger sister, Lisa, and when I was about 6 years old, she was about 4, they took us out to eat one night, and after we left the restaurant, we got back in the car, they put us in the back seat, and we didn't have child protective seats back then, it was mid-70s, but my parents also didn't seat belt us in, which they say, well, nobody did that back then, but I think they just didn't care about us. And so they got in the front, and my dad starts the car, pops in the old 8-track tape. Knowing my parents, mid-70s, it's probably Neil Diamond's greatest hit. So music starts filling the car. Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching you, touching me. Do you guys want to sing Sweet Caroline? Pretty good. And so my dad puts it into drive, starts pulling out of the parking lot. Little did they know that they hadn't shut my sister's door real well. She was leaning against it, door swung open. She fell out of the car. My father, my parents didn't notice, and I didn't say a word. I just waved goodbye. We get out on the main road. We start driving down the road when all of a sudden my father goes, "Where's Lisa?" And I'm like, he got so mad, spun the car around, went back. There's Lisa sobbing in the parking lot. Girl always was a crybaby. My parents had 2 kids, and they couldn't keep track of both of us in a car, right? But Jesus says this shepherd has 100 sheep and immediately recognizes that one of them is missing. And not only does he realize it, he cares. Right? In fact, he goes out on this all-out search and rescue mission. And when he finally finds his sheep, man, he parties like it's 0099. I'm gonna go ahead and do it right there.
Hey, man.
Hey,
What's going on?
we got to do it. I've been thinking about the whole Splogna vision, starting churches on sinful streets, and it's got to happen, man. We're waiting too long. We need to do it now. Let's do it.
You know how much I love the vision,
So let's do it.
and I love your enthusiasm.
Let's do it.
I just don't see how we can.
We can do
I
it.
mean, you realize we're talking about starting an entire church planting organization,
I realize.
which requires people and resources and money.
Right.
I mean, we're gonna need people who can go out and recruit church planners. We need people who can train and coach them.
Right.
We don't have time.
We're just pastoring a church and trying to be missionaries to Las Vegas.
Exactly,
We got
yes.
time.
Resources, I mean, all the things we need to put in their hands, the project management, forms, docs, all that stuff. And then money alone. I mean, you and I mean, we raise our own salary. I would love to do it, but I just don't see how we're gonna be able to pull it off. It would take something way bigger than us, something outside of us. I mean, God would just have to show up in a big way.
Rational people are so depressing. When my kids were younger, my wife and I took them to a big water park. And my son was 5, my daughter about to turn 3, so we spent our day in the kiddie pools. There was this series of kiddie pools. We spent a while in the first one, and then we walked up the stairs, had to walk maybe like 100 yards to the second one, played that one for a while, went up the stairs, down 100 yards to the third kiddie pool. My kids loved this one because there was this big slide, and they went up, down, up, down, up, down, over and over. And my wife and I were just kind of standing watching them. And finally, my wife says, "Hey, I'm gonna go stand under that mushroom shower umbrella thingy." I was like, "All right, go ahead." So she walks off. My son comes down the side and goes, "Where's Mom? Where's Mom?" And I said, "It's all right, she went under the mushroom shower umbrella thingy." And he's like, "Can I go get her?" I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead." So he runs off, and my daughter proceeds to go up, down, up, down, up, down, about 15,000 times. The girl will not quit. So finally, I'm like, "All right, that's enough. Let's go get Mom and Dawson." So we walk over, and my wife is standing under the mushroom shower umbrella thingy. And I'm like, "Hey." She's like, "Hey." I'm like, "Where's Dawson?" She said, "He's with you." I said, "I sent him over here like, I don't know, it's more than 5 minutes ago." And she said, "I haven't seen him." You're gonna think I'm crazy. My first instinct was to freak out. Like, I start thinking, a water park is the perfect place to abduct a kid. But I'm like, "Man, stop. It's a kiddie pool." He got distracted. So I start looking around, and it's a big pool, bigger, probably about the size of this room maybe. And finally, I'm like, he's not here. And I start freaking out more. I'm like, no, just look for a kid with light brown hair. Light brown hair. But he's not there. I'm like, okay, he's wearing a blue bathing suit, kid with blue bathing suit, and he's not there. Now I really freak out. Like, my heart is beating out of my chest. My throat clenches up. And I start thinking, man, I am never going to see my kid again. I am never going to hold my kid again. And so what I did was I ran up the stairs so I could get an overview of the pool thing, and maybe I'd see him somewhere. And so I'm up there, and there's all these people bumping into me on the sidewalk. There's tons of people, but I'm looking down, and I'm like, he's got to be here, but he's not, and light brown hair, blue bathing suit, and he is not in there. And so I looked down the sidewalk, I'm looking everywhere. I looked up the sidewalk, and way up, I thought I saw this kid weaving between people's legs. And I'm embarrassed to tell you what I did, but I just started screaming his name. I'm like, Dawson! 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 And finally, this kid way up there hears this crazy man screaming and does one of these, and it was him. And he saw me, and he starts running to me, and I'm running to him. If you want a picture, I think it was quite romantic. And finally, we get to each other, and he jumps in my arms, and he is just crying. And I said, buddy, what happened? Where were you? And he said, you said Mom was at the mushroom, so I went into the first pool to get her. I was like, oh man, no, not that mushroom, the one in this pool. Buddy, I am so sorry. And I held him, and I held him. And I realized in that moment that I understood what it was like to be God. Those thoughts I had, am I ever going to see my child again? Am I ever going to hold my child again? Those are the thoughts God must have every single day, because he has countless children who have wandered away from him.
Travis feels like called to reach Fremont Street with God's love, the artist down there, and I'm told him, when you have that, God's put it in your heart, you need to go for it. And God did that with us coming to Las Vegas, and he feels like it's too big for him. I think that he can't do it. And I told him, our big dream is to start Splagna and start churches on sinful streets for cynical people all over the world, and that is way too big for us, and we're gonna go for it.
So when are we actually going for it?
Well, this is about Travis, not about me.
God has called us to do some really crazy things, one of them being start this church in Las Vegas. So when the team felt like starting a church planning network was the thing to do, I immediately thought, well, that makes sense. That's something God would have us do. Let's make it about you. When is this gonna start? It feels like all we've been doing is talking about it. Let's maybe start.
We're waiting for, I talked to Jeff about that today, and we don't have half of what we need to do something that big.
But since when has that ever stopped us from doing anything?
Man, this is just something I don't think we're prepared to do. They're right, we need to do it, but it just doesn't seem like we're ready to do that now.
I mean, we've started 2 churches with very few people. What's the big deal? Let's do it. When you do those kind of crazy things or things that don't make sense or huge risks, they pay off in amazing, crazy ways.
Don't be such a wimp.
I know, it seems kind of like you're being a wimp.
Don't be such a wimp. I will wimp your butt, little girl. Like what I did right there with wimp your butt, whip your butt. Mm-hmm. It's going down.
I guess I just need to keep praying and see what the next steps might be.
Every time we work together, man, it's just a pleasure. It's awesome to work with you, for real.
Cool. Thank you, man.
My lifestyle before coming to Verve was pretty crazy, and there was a lot of healing that had to happen within my marriage. I remember Mike and Tara Rayburn one time where we went over there and had some food, and they just ministered to us. They were really there to help us through that time, so. Man, on another note, I really have something else I gotta talk to you about. I've just been feeling like this urgency to go reach the whole downtown Fremont area.
Yeah.
Have you been down there?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering why Fremont?
I don't know, it's like with everything that God has done in my life, it seemed like it is an impossible thing that happened, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's possible for them too, right? And, why not the artist and, business community of downtown, who's reaching them? And
You're right, I don't think there's anybody out there, and obviously they're an influential group. So if you could reach them, that'd be great, but it sounds to me like you're not so sure, like you're lacking a little confidence or something.
I mean, I definitely know I need to go, it's just not knowing how. Right now, it's just me, know? And that's, a lot of times, if I'm by myself, sometimes it can feel like too big of a project,
Yeah, and I would ask you to remember this. You're not by yourself. I mean, if you're showing up there because God asked you to be there, God's gonna be there too. He's gonna be there with you every step of the way. So what is it inside you, passions or your abilities or the things that you think about that you like to do, how do you think you're going to reach those people? I'd think about that.
God gave us a vision to start churches for cynical people in sinful places. I just couldn't figure out how. Then my phone rang, and with that call, God opened the door. Now it's time to walk through it.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah. Right.
It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna do so good.
So I talked to Vince about the whole downtown Fremont idea, and he encouraged me, told me I definitely have to do it, but he didn't really give me any kind of direction. And then I talked to Mike, and same thing, he's like, God will provide whatever it is that you need. Shh, Mommy and I are talking, relax. Says that God will provide everything that I need, and if that's what he wants you to do, it'll happen. But still, again, it's like, I don't know what to do or how to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, really, you're a creative person. You've always been persistent. Ever since I've met you, you're talented, you're artistic, so why question it? It's music.
I held my son, and I realized those thoughts I had, will I ever see my child again? Will I ever hold my child again? Those are the thoughts God must have every day about his lost children. I think of Jeremiah chapter 4, where God says this. He says, "Oh, my anguish, I writhe in pain. Oh, the agony of my heart. My heart pounds within me. I cannot keep silent." It's pretty intense talk coming out of God, and it makes you wonder, what is God so tormented about? He tells us, "My people are fools. They do not know me. They are senseless children. They have no understanding. They are skilled in doing evil. They know not how to do good." But God doesn't reject his senseless children. His heart is broken, and he offers an invitation. If you, Israel, will return, then return to me.
You over there staring, what's up?
I can tell you're nervous. Hey,
What's up?
just want you to know, you'll do great. You know you got this. You'll do great.
God says, come back to me. Come back to me. God wants you back with him. That's why Jesus came for you, so that he could bring you back to God. And listen, if you've been found, then you need to help others come back to him. Once we're back with God, our life has this new purpose, this new mission, and it's to make sure that everyone knows about Jesus and has an opportunity to come back to God.
Thank you, baby. Pray for me, I love you. Okay?
God has called all of us to reach those who are far from him. And when we commit to doing that, God will make a way. For me, God made a way through a phone call through which God provided a strategic partnership that allowed us to move forward with our vision. Then I was able to share our vision with a big audience.
From Verve Church in Las Vegas, Vince Antonucci.
We started a church right in the heart of Sin City, just off the Las Vegas Strip, and in our 4 years, we've seen over 200 people come to Christ and get baptized. And that's why right now we're launching a new church planting movement called Splagna. Splagna is a dream that what we're gonna do is inspire, equip, and resource church planters to start churches in the most sinful places and for the most cynical people. Places like Bourbon Street and the Sunset Strip and 6th Street in Austin, and neighborhoods all over San Francisco and in Southeast Portland and in the red light district of Amsterdam. We're doing this because those are the kind of places that Jesus would have gone. But they're the kind of places that Christians today tend to avoid. And where the church has little, if any, presence. They're kind of places where sin may abound, but where God's light is going to burn bright, and where grace will abound all the more. We're doing this through a partnership with Stadia, who has offered to come in and provide the manpower and the infrastructure and the support we need to make this happen. And if the idea of that gets your heart beating fast, if you think, man, I need to help get a church started or help fund a new church in a place that really needs it, you can connect with us at the Splagna section of the Stadia booth, because this is gonna take all of us. We all need to do whatever we can to connect with people who are far from God so we can get them connected to Jesus.
Jesus began preaching good news gospel, God and his kingdom. Time has come, kingdom is at hand. Repent, you turn, believe the good plan. Now there was a man in the synagogue, turning demon possessed, crying out like, what you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? The Holy One of God, we know who you are. He said, be quiet and come out of him. The demon gave a shriek, came out, and he was gone. Everybody was amazed, like, you see that? He committed that demon was obedient. News about him spread immediately throughout all the rich and and a voice came from heaven, said, you are mine. What'd he say? You are mine. And with you I am. Hey, break it down right here. He says the same to you. If you only knew how much. If you only knew. Beloved, he says the same to you. If you only knew this love. If you only knew. Beloved, he says the same to you. If you only knew how much. If you only knew. Beloved, he says the same to you. If you only knew this love. Be blessed. We love y'all. Y'all are amazing.